did it take?
For the 13-2 was a 35-minute fight from 1,800 yards out.
Shit.
All right, boss. You got a choice of the chartreuse or the white.
I'll take that.
All right. All right, guys. We've got a Penn SQUAL 50 VSW right here, and what we're going to go ahead and do is spool it up with the 130-pound Cortland Hollow Core 16 strand. Kind of excited because we haven't done a squall for the library in a minute, so let's go and knock this out.
Gotta bite. I think I got a lot of stress on my mind. It's a nice day to go. Yeah, I gotta line. I'ma call the whole team.
All right, guys. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my first knot, which is the wraps around the spool. This is what grips the spool when the lighting tightens up. The second one is a hollow core splice on itself, taking the tag line back into the main line and creating the noose. This is how it works together. I forgot to reset the line counter on it. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and completely fill it up, and I'll down spool it and then put it back on the line counter so we know exactly where we're at. Because you see these notches here, they also tell you how much line you got at, and by me having the line counter correct, it will ensure that, hey, oh, I hit that, I got this much line left or whatever and stuff. So, but for me to do it now, it's actually easier if I go the opposite way. So. I'm not worried about cutting this braid because it's a hollow core. So I splice it, put it right onto the main spool, and it'll be good to go. So if you only want, a little bit less than this or more than this, I don't want to pre-cut it and you say, you know what, I actually want it more or I want less, you know what I mean? So I'm just going to overfill it for the sake of the video, so that way when I'm done I can say, okay, this is the max it can take, but then I can down spool it to where you want it and cut the line there and be good to go. So as you can see with mine, I overfill. So, all right, so I've got it filled up. What I'm going to do now is go and back it all the way off because I didn't have my line counter going. Right now it says it has 1,875 yards, but I know that it doesn't hold that much. So let's go and fix this real quick. Alright guys, we just passed up 100 yards of braid on this reel. And yeah, that's about right where it was reading out 500 yards. So I knew there was something off, but I just didn't know how far off. So had to down spool it and re-spool it, and we'll get it set up. Alright, there's 200 yards on there, and we still haven't hit the bottom mark on this one, so see how much we can get on there. Looks like that market might mark it out for like 300 or 400 yards right there, so. We're at 300 yards, but I still got about 1/8 of an inch of spool exposure before we hit to that bottom line. So. Alright guys, so we've covered up the line on both sides, and we're right at about 400 yards. It says 400, but I'm going to say about, because as you can see right here, I doubled over the line, so it's like 395, 396, but 400 per line, so we should be sitting right at about 12 to 1300 yards a line by the top one. So let's see if that math stays out.
So good.
Alright guys, I've covered up the second bevel, and I'm real close to this one, and we're at 750 yards. So yeah, like I said, that first one I was a little bit over, but we're right there. So let's see how it goes and closes out.
So good.
Alright guys, so I'm completely flush across the spool right here on the inner side, and I'm at 1100 yards, which is a good starting point if you want to keep it there. Have you dealt with big reels like this on reeling them in and stuff like that? So then this would be safe to say this is where I would want to cut it for you. And the reason being because you see how I got it nice and clean up and down? When you're reeling in, that's what you want to replicate.
Okay.
That way you can get all the line back on there. Now after a few times of you running it out, pulling it in, and you get it perfectly in like that, you say, you know what? Let me add more line, because now you can reach out for further different distances. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mark his spool right here. So that way, and yep, I'm doing the permanent marker again, but now we'll get it tested out with the thicker line instead of the thin line we did last time. I did that, and then with the shirt, I went to go dry it off, but I didn't wait for it to dry up. It was wet, and I went like this, and I burnt through the line like that. So it was something I'd never seen before, but you know, it's physics. You know, it's still moist and wet against an abrasion, and you're putting a lot of pressure on it. You build up that friction, you cut through it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I just did it with the shirt too, but it was also 40-pound test versus 130.
Oh yeah, yeah, big difference.
Yep, good to go now. All right, so I've got the mark on the line, so I can bring it back down after I fill it up so we can get the max line capacity and see where we're at on this reel. All right, guys, so there's still a little bit of gap here, but I stopped it there on the original version of the video, and we're at 1,478 yards of 130 on this 50. So actually 1,378, sorry. But we're going to take it back down because for him, it's his first big reel that we are spooling for him, so it'll give him a chance to get used to it. So we're going to take it back down to 1,000 yards and go from there. But now y'all know. What I'm doing here is I'm doing a hollow core splice back in on itself, so the end of the braid don't keep fraying out, but also too, it creates a 260 pound tippet basically, because it's doubled up of the 130. So that little bit of end right there will be 230 pound or 260 pound test. And then I've got knots on my YouTube channel that show you how to tie them on and untie them, so that way you don't cut your braid anymore.